All right, everybody, welcome. This is the day 4 of TDOC, the 12 Days of Community. Thank you so much to everybody that's been joining us live each night. We've had a great group. And at the same time, thank you for those of you that have been watching the recording if you've not been able to join us live. Each night, of course, as you know, we have a different guest. Each night we'll be dropping different products, different things, recipe sharing. So there's lots that we're doing new this year for TDOC. And as always, super excited to continue since we're not even halfway through. Now, each night it has just been a doozy, so I never know how long we're going to talk. So remember, you have to stay till the end for us to be able to pick that magic number and see who is going to win a $25 store credit. And of course, remember that number is going to be picked by our guest. So I don't know if we're going to go for an hour. I don't know if we're going to go for an hour and a half. I don't know if it's going to be 2 hours. But at the end, that's what we're going to do. So if you can hang in there with us, that would be great. We'd love to have you. And of course, as always, I've got Erin as the moderator. Now, unfortunately, I don't think that can pertain to those of you watching the recording, but for those of you with us, keep that conversation going in the chat. We love to see you guys commenting with each other back and forth. And I think tonight is definitely going to be a really fun one. I think it's going to be informational, but at the same time, it's also going to be super fun, and that's what it's all about. Now, I always want to go over a couple of things because, of course, we know that most of you are knitters, crocheters, fiber enthusiasts, and so we're going to kind of start off with some of our usuals, just kind of letting you know about the things that you see behind me, things that I have here to share with you, and we've also been doing our recipe share. Oh no, I have to go get it. I forgot it in the fridge, but it's only going to take 2 seconds, so entertain yourselves. I love live, right? That reminded me. All right, and I'm excited about this one, guys. I've been wanting to make this one, and we're going to actually do like a taste test together. Well, you can't taste it, but I'm going to be tasting it for the first time. So we're going to leave that off to the side for now. So behind me, guys, for my pattern queens. So here behind me, we have the Shepherd's Embrace that uses our worsted weight yarn. Now, remember last night we featured some of our worsted weight yarns, and I said that they are going out. So it's kind of like the last of the Mohicans. So this one takes 3 skeins. Plus, we're going to be talking a lot about curls this week. Remember, we have our Crafting with Cotswold class. I know some of you have signed up for that. This is going to be our last class for this year. So many of you have taken it. Some of you haven't yet. So lots about curls, because also we've got a future guest towards the end of TDOC who also has gotten. My dear friend Amy Kidd will be with us for the fiber chat. I've already told you guys we've got some dyed curls that are going to drop on Thursday for our Fiber Friends chat. So lots of things that are going to tie in with the Shepherd's Embrace. Kind of sort of behind me here. This is actually because John's going to be with us tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about all things spinning. So this is the Josie shawl. That's a pattern of Kimberly McAlinden's. It takes 1 skein of fingering weight yarn. But the significance, which is a little hard to see, is the tassels that are on the shawl. So there's actually 3 points to the shawl, and we've used art yarn to create the tassels for it to just give it a little extra flair. So that means there's probably some brand new art yarn that's going to be dropping on Thursday to start off the new year. So Thursday, you're going to want to be with us. And then can't really see too much, but I love when I dress my dress forms and I'm like, I want to be that girl. That was pretty much me last night in my jean jacket. So we've got the EVB cowl on my lady here. And then I'm wearing the EVB sweater in the alpaca blend because it was kind of warm here today. So I chose to not put on the wood burning stove so I would not look like I was having a complete hot flash, and instead bundled up in a turtleneck and then this nice heavy sweater. This one was done in Jasper, which is out of stock, but we do still have some obsidian left, snowflake obsidian, which is the same type of yarn that you see here. And the interesting thing is, if you remember from our conversation with Judy and Morgan with the alpacalets, they were talking about the alpaca fiber and how soft it is, but how heavy it is. So this is a good outdoor sweater, but it's keeping me warm as I'm sitting on the porch. So those are all of our patterns that we're featuring for tonight. The yarn that I wanted to feature for tonight, because tonight's going to be a lot about llamas, but a lot about all other animals. And so I wanted to pick a yarn that was actually from some of my animals. And I know some of you have been scooping this up already. So this is part of our new collection, the Shear and Share. That means I've shorn everything in here. I've skirted the fleece, sorted the fleece, packaged the fleece, sent it to the mill, designed the yarn if it was a particular blend. So really took it from start to finish. And this also goes back to some of our farm roots. So this is Layla, Munson, and Georgia. So you know Layla is the mom, and then Munson and Georgia are her son and daughter that are also here on the farm. So this has got a really, really beautiful hand. It's not really brown. We talked about brown the other night too. It's like a beautiful caramel, so don't think it's brown. And it's also in a fingering weight. So I know some of you have been scooping this up for this year's knit along with Kimberly and myself. And so I wanted to be able to feature this one for tonight. So this is our yarn, and I would say there's probably still a good 20 or so left, but that's a brand new batch that just came back to us not too long ago. Then as far as our products, so I'm super excited about these two products. One, this one I'm not as excited about because people are sick, but I wanted to remind you guys that we do have 50% off our skincare line going throughout TDOC. I've already given you the code, so if you don't know it, go back and watch one, maybe two, maybe ask Erin in the chat. But a lot of people are sick right now. So remember our steamers. They go in the corner of your shower and then just kind of emit the aroma. I was thinking of all of you because of the eucalyptus more than anything else, just trying to help with that congestion. Otherwise, we do also have the lavender and then the sea glass, which many of you know. So I just thought this was an appropriate one since I hear everybody's getting knocked out by colds, that you might enjoy it, or maybe you know somebody you can send it to. So these are all 50% off, including also the little steamer tray that goes along with them. So that wasn't the products I was excited about. I mean, I love those, but I just wanted to throw that in there and remind you about our special for you this week. So Driving Home Naked is the main book that we're going to be talking about with Melinda, and we were joking a little bit about it last night, and we'll pull her into it. We were taking guesses because I will say I've had the book, and to some way I didn't read it because I didn't want to. I probably should have read a little bit of it, but I love to equally be surprised. So we were taking bets, don't tell us now, but we were taking bets about like what the Driving Home Naked, happened, like what happened and why. Now, I mean, I said I can only imagine that maybe I've had many a cow encounter of where, that lovely cow poop or even cow pee just shoots out at you and it just gets everywhere. And that's definitely a reason to completely undress. And I forget what Frankie said last night. I know she didn't go for cow. I know she was maybe thinking it was something else, but kind of along those same lines. So it definitely has something to do with that because, again, this great little care kit that comes here that I'll share with you guys that's going to go into the keepsake basket. So my product number one this is a foreshadowing because on our Thursday night Fiber Friends chat, my dear friend Heidi from Dirty Girl Yarns, you guys, most of you should know her. She actually is now creating a wool wash / shampoo / yarn wash. And it's great because she's Dirty Girl and this is Not So Dirty Girl wool shampoo. So the reason why this is appropriate is because actually Heidi uses this for her hair also. She uses it as a body shampoo, hair shampoo, and it's all organic. I did use it to wash some curls, especially the white ones, and it did a really good job. And I used my method the same way I use my other chemical-based products. So I was really happy about it. Also, for those of you that want to wash your knitted goods, if you use Eucalypt or you use soak, this is also something else that you can use as well for that. So it's got a number of applications. We just loaded it up on the website tonight, so that's there. It's $25 and it's a 16-ounce bottle. So I thought that was pretty appropriate. I feel like I need to be sending Melinda one on the house as a thank you for any of those other occurrences that you might have. Now, the other one, I don't have it in my hands because I've not had time yet to go pick it up, but Erin will drop a link in the chat. It is so ridiculous, guys. But my llama bestie Carol and I, when we were on the road one time traveling out to Iowa, we always have to stop at the world's largest truck stop because I don't know who can't be a tourist when you're on the road. And we found these little plastic llama poo dispensers. So you put candy into the llama and then you like push it and it spits out poop, which is candy. So it's like a Pez dispenser, but it's in the shape of a llama and it's called Llama Dew. Well, we finally found like ways to get it without have to like ordering like 10,000 of them and having them come from China. So they are on the website. It's just super fun and super cute. And I thought, you know, while you're shopping for other things, I don't know, I think, what do we have it at, like 350 or something? I mean, it's like, yeah, it's so simple. But again, considering tonight's conversations, I was like, I got to tell you guys about it. And hopefully tomorrow I'll have time to drive and go get it because we have a distributor on Long Island, so it's not too far away and save myself on shipping. And of course, that saves you guys costs as well. So I thought those were two super fun products to share for tonight's talk. So last thing before we kind of like dive into things. I mean, I think that's for the most part for me, but tonight's recipe share. So I do want to say, first of all, I am really glad. I don't care if just one of you each time decides to try the new recipes, but I love it. And I love seeing that. So I know a couple of you dived into the applesauce recipe. I was chatting with Laura when we were first starting. So she sent me a text and a picture of the cranberry sauce recipe that she did. So, and why am I even forgetting? We're on day 4. What else did I do, guys? I don't even know now. Why can't I think of it? I don't know. I can't even read your mouth. Unmute yourself and remind me, Erin. What did I do? Are you trying to think as well?
Applesauce,
Oh, thank you. The candy cranberries, the sugar cranberries. Okay. So I don't know if anybody tried those, but I actually gifted some the other day, believe it or not, to like some of the guys at the gym. I was like, you know what? I'm just giving them like little baggies of like handmade things. So they all got applesauce and sugared cranberries, and they actually liked it. I thought they were going to laugh at me, but they really liked it. So definitely give those a try. So what we have tonight, kind of like still fall holiday theme. You know, here in our office, we have a big dispute about who's on Team Pumpkin and who's not. Jill is not a PSL girl. I am so a PSL girl. I am pumpkin spice latte all the way. I am pumpkin all the way. Jill thinks this is complete shit, basically. So I did not get her to try this because I had to make it after she left. The thing is, there's a little twist to this. So this is like a pumpkin pie protein bowl. Stick with me here. You guys know I do work out a lot. I do try to stay super fit, and I do try to eat as clean as I can. Jill is wrong. She is wrong. So for all of you ladies, because you know we're all getting older and we need our protein, and you're looking for ways to get your protein, this is a way to add protein. So this actually has 30 grams of protein in this sort of like one serving dessert, if you will. I know Erin is dropping the recipe into the chat, but it is so super simple. And I have another one that I want to do later that's an actual no-bake pumpkin cheesecake that just adds a couple of other ingredients. So literally all this is pure pumpkin puree. It is a scoop of vanilla protein powder. I added some vanilla extract, kind of using a little bit from another recipe. So that's not in this recipe. I just added a half of a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I don't remember what I really think that's it. I can't remember, but the recipe is up there. It's so simple. And then all you do is just spoon it together. It did call for like crumbling graham crackers on top and then adding some light whipped cream. I'm definitely opting to not do those. Oh, I know. And also there's maple syrup in here. So there's a call for 3 tablespoons of 0 calorie or 0 sugar maple syrup. I did not go out and get that specifically. So I use good old pure maple syrup, actually from Ioka Valley Farm in Massachusetts. I shear for them. They have llamas, and they also have a whole maple syrup farm. So this is their maple syrup. So a little shout out to them. So I did not try it. I literally, whatever was left, which wasn't much, I threw it out. I rinsed off the spoon. I rinsed off the spatula. I did not try anything because I wanted to try it with you guys. So let's see. And it's really good. I swear to God, it is really, really good. Now, the only thing I'm going to say, because I just got a little chunk of the protein powder, So I probably need to do a better job of actually blending it. It said just stir it by hand. I mean, I probably could have put it into a NutriBullet, but then I think it would have been hard to get it out of that. So probably just would have had to whisk it up a bit more. But I can totally do this. I mean, it's really, really good. So I really highly encourage all my pumpkin gals. If this is something that you think you would like, you really need to try it because it took literally like 10 minutes to put it together, if that. And then I just stuck it in the fridge to chill it. That's why I forgot it. And you're done. And it pretty much makes a single serving if you're using a cup of pumpkin puree. But obviously, if you want to make bigger servings or make some for other people. So definitely this is a winner. So I want to hear some people trying it if you like your pumpkin. So that's it. Melinda, do you like pumpkin? Are you team PSL or no?
No, no, no.
All right. Well, it's okay. You're not.
It sounds good though, but no.
That's all right. We'll let it slide. We'll let it slide. But no, yeah, Michelle, this is an absolutely no bake. It is, there's no baking included. The one I want to try is a no bake cheesecake, utilizing a lot of the same ingredients. But this is just meant to be like a protein bowl. So it tastes, it's like the consistency of like a really thick yogurt, like Greek yogurt. That's what I would say. So absolutely amazing. All right. That's all my stuff, guys. So we're now going to get rolling with the rest of our program for the evening. I hope you guys always have fun with all that beginning stuff. And always thank you to my guests for hanging with us while we kind of go over these things for everybody. I work hard to get these little surprises together. And what I say every night, it's kind of amazing how things line up, and I've never planned it intentionally in terms of how guests have lined up, things we've talked about. So just even with the products, you know, that I'm like, these would be perfect. It's not like I mapped this all out to say, oh, I'm going to have Linda on and she talked about getting dirty and having to rip her clothes off and drive home. And here we go. So that's kind of the serendipity of all of this. My brief introduction, guys, to Melinda, Dr. McCall, who is our guest for this evening. And I actually even just checked with her beforehand to be sensitive to the situation. But, you know, the realities are there's lots of things that happen out there in the llama world, in all the animal world. And, you know, we see all the time, especially here in my area, Long Island, you know, so many cases or issues with animals not getting proper care. And of course, authorities having to come in and all of that. So, dare I say, that was my first introduction with Melinda. We never officially met. I don't even remember. Oh, we did talk on the phone, right? I think in the early days of that situation, we talked on the phone. So there was a big llama farm down in Virginia called Westerham, and unfortunately, it was originally run by two wonderful people that were very, very long-standing history in the industry. The husband was a judge. They bred for years, so just really had a great reputation. And when they decided to retire, somebody came in with quite a bit of money to purchase the operation, to add to, I guess, their repertoire of other things that they do, but in a sense, an absentee landlord owner, if you will. And then they hired a young man who has also, I mean, he's not really, wasn't really that young anymore. We're not talking 20s. I mean, we're talking an adult, but I always saw him as a young man because he kind of grew up in the industry. So he then took over the care of this farm and of the animals. And so the short story is that unfortunately it took a drastic turn for the worse. The interesting thing is, some of you who follow my dear friends at Autumn Olive Farm, and if you know Cowgirl and Starstruck, those are two llamas that actually came from this farm. So we, of course, still see them and care for them, and I cheer for them every year. And they are one of the ones that got out, if you will, before everything really, really took a turn for the worse. So I ended up getting involved mostly because I think in the early days of all this happening and the shifting of things, I think it was because I came in that first year to shear. And I think that's maybe how you and I got connected in terms of like maybe just speaking about the animals and where they're at, because it was really, I think, something that had just kind of happened, and there were still some like critical cases and different things like that. So I know we never met because I was able to go and work with Michelle, I think that first year. So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of how we met. And I'll let Melinda talk about that a little bit more if she wants, or whatever direction she wants to go in. But fast forward, we had some conversations that first year, and then I just always knew who she was. And then last year, now this has got to be almost like 8 years ago, I think. I feel like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
been quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously she's still out there doing her thing. Now, another one of my clients in Virginia who I've been cheering for eons of years. This is the sweetest, dearest lady. Her name is Pat Neighbors. And I don't, do you, so, well, you must, do you treat Pat's animals
Mhm.
as well?
I was just there a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. And I've been doing Pat forever. I mean, just as long as I can remember. And I guess just not really putting together how many clients I cheer for that utilize you as a vet. We'll probably have to like run over that roster at some point and see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so Pat always gives me things whenever I come. Like literally, guys, I have bed sheets with llamas on them because Pat sent them to me, and they're really quite cozy. It's like a nice little like flannel feel to it. She also gives me strange things because she knows I'll love it. So this last trip, I got two of her horse's teeth, which I assume maybe I don't know if you pulled them out, Melinda, or how she ended up with them, but she gave those to me because she thought my vet tech students would find it cool, and of course I found it cool. And then the other thing is, she's like, I know you're so busy. She's like, but you might really find this an interesting read. And, she said, my vet, I don't know if you had given it to her or she just knew about it or I have no idea. But she said, I've read it already and I'd love to pass it on to you. And I'm looking at it. And of course, the title, Driving Home Naked and Other Misadventures of a Country Veterinarian. I'm like, that's great. And then I look down and I'm like, Melinda McCall. I'm like, I know who this is. I'm like, this is amazing. So this was all the way back in April, and I have carried this book around just knowing that I wanted to be able to have you on as a guest, and not knowing, or of course, knowing how busy you must be. I just want to say thank you for responding really so quickly. A, B, not thinking I was totally crazy. Hopefully, you remembered who I was, and just being willing to do our little program here and share your experiences and share your book. So that's my introduction. I mean, we've got so many different directions that we can go in because, as I was saying to you, of course, I want to get your background as a vet, but then the fact that you have not only one book, but then you have a kid's book, and then you have a whole like driving home naked care package with soap and a lip balm, and then is this what
A
is
tea bag. A tea
okay?
bag.
At first, you know what I thought, which would have been like completely apropos. I thought maybe it was like a hand wipe, you know.
Oh, I should have done that.
So, but this is probably when you need to relax after getting home driving
Right.
home naked.
Right. Right.
So I'm just dying to know where all this came about too. So I promise you, I will shut up, and I am looking forward to all of this. So introduce yourself however you like, and I don't know. We've got to start in the beginning because the first thing people always ask me is like, "Well, how are you doing? What you're doing? How did you arrive here?" So yeah, tell us who you are, and we'll roll from there.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. My name is Melinda. You can just call me Melinda. Everybody calls me Melinda. Except mean clients that like are real disrespectful to guys, and I make them call me Dr. McCall, but everybody else can just call me Melinda. So I became a veterinarian 21 years ago, I guess. I grew up on a dairy farm down in the southwestern part of Virginia in the mountains, right at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains near Abingdon. If any of you guys are familiar with the Barter Theater in Abingdon, I grew up about 25 minutes from there. And so I always loved the cows. I mean, the cows were my first love because we milked Holsteins and we raised border collies. So occasionally you'll see my border collie come in and out and drop a ball at my feet, maybe show himself on the Zoom, but he's getting old now, so that won't last for but so long. But we had border collies growing up. We had hair sheep growing up, and they were batshit crazy, basically. But they were great for training dogs.
Wait, wait, wait. What breed did you have?
Well, we had all the breeds mixed together. At first, we had Barbados black bellies, and they
That
just,
is exactly when
I'm
you
almost,
said batshit crazy. I'm like,
yeah,
she's
yeah.
got to mean those.
So then we did some crossbreeding. Like when I realized they could jump over my head and I was almost 6 feet tall, I was like, time for crossbreeding. So we crawled. They had a little bit of everything, and that calmed them down a little bit. But they were great for training the dogs. So I grew up with cows, dogs, border collies, and sheep. So and that all kind of led me down this path of becoming a large animal veterinarian.
Did you go like right from high school to right from undergrad and then right to a vet, or was there time in between? Like some people find it later. I'm not about to do mathematics and guess ages and things like that. So, what was your timeline? Did you stay within Virginia, or did you go to vet school outside of it?
No, I did some undergrad outside of Virginia, but everything else was just straight through. I was dead set on that path. Like I knew I wanted to do that, and I didn't know what I was going to do if I didn't get on that path pretty quickly. So no, I was on that path, and but in undergrad, I went to a small school in Charlotte called Queens, and so I actually got to go to Ireland for a semester. So I went to school in Ireland. That was awesome, and I got to go back when I was in veterinary school, and I got to go to New Zealand at the beginning of veterinary school too, and I got to work at SeaWorld in Texas in between undergrad and vet school just for a summer, but they paid really well. And so that was fun. And all the kids at SeaWorld were like, "How did a little country girl from Virginia get to work at SeaWorld?" And I said, "Well, I told them I worked with large black and white mammals and they didn't ask any more questions. So here I am."
And guys, for those of you that don't understand that joke, because she grew up milking Holsteins, those are the big black and white cows. So when she said she worked with big black and white mammals, you weren't
Yeah,
wrong.
definitely not orcas, that's for sure, but I really enjoyed them, every second of them.
That's so cool. Now, was that like required? I mean, I know like so in undergrad. Oh, this is another one because not everybody majors in the same. So, what did you major in undergrad to carry you to vet school?
I actually just majored in biology because the school I went to, they didn't have an animal science program. So that's what I majored in, and I thought that was a good backup in case I didn't get into veterinary school.
And how hard was it back then, versus now? I mean, I'm out of it a little bit, but when I worked for our local cooperative extension service, we actually ran, and it's still running today. I'm just not involved, but we would run a vet tech. I mean, not sorry, a veterinary medicine career program for high school students. So essentially, high school students would register to be able to like sit on a weekly basis. We'd present them with different guest veterinarians that do different things, right? Because so many just think like dog, cat, or maybe horse, or, so showing them that there are so many different routes, but also being really realistic with them to let them know, how difficult it is to get in. So I'm sure, it wasn't an easy thing. I mean, you have to have good grades. Do you know like how many were accepted the year your entrance year?
Yeah, in my interest here, there were 90 in my class, and so 50 of those would have been from Virginia, but I was probably competing against 400 or 500 students from Virginia. And the out-of-state people, there was only 10 spots for them. They were competing probably against 3 or 4 thousand people. So, I mean, it's competitive. I probably wouldn't even get in now. I'm just too I think maybe just too common sense. Like they're really after the brains now, and I would have fallen through some crack for sure on that because I'm more well-rounded, I try to be very well-rounded. So
Well,
yeah,
that also means you're more practical. There's definitely a difference between book smart and street smart, or in
yeah.
this sense, book smart and animal smart. So, and the animal smart part goes a long way. And I'm sure there's plenty of vets out there that perhaps don't have that. Actually,
Oh
there's
yeah.
some in our area that don't have that currently. So, it's not a bad thing for sure. And yeah, and so for people who don't understand, like not every state has a veterinary school. So they are usually contracted with neighboring states that don't have their own state vet school for so many students, again, like she was just saying, from the outside to be able to also be accepted. And there's just only so many seats, as it's called. So that's why I was curious if you, remembered those stats back then, because it's extremely competitive. So kudos to you. And you got in first year, first try.
Yeah, thank goodness.
And Miss
Not an
At
easy
four
process.
four grueling years, like how hard was it?
it's hard. I mean, you smell like formaldehyde so much that when you go to the gym, you sweat it out through your pores. I mean, that's how much you were in a lab with dead things your first year, and they didn't have any windows. And I was like, are they just trying to make us jump off of a bridge? I don't know. I mean, it was like, this just doesn't seem healthy in a lot of ways. But they just sort of tested you to see how bad you really wanted to be there.
Michelle had a question for you, Melinda, in the chat.
Sure.
Have you noticed, I'm assuming she's going towards gender roles in the programs. Have you noticed gender females in the vet education programs? I'm assuming she means,
I'm thinking she also probably means like maybe increasing. I mean, that's what my guess would be because back in the day, it was definitely male dominated, and now would you say it's more female
Oh,
dominated?
it's like 80% female now. People don't, that's why I felt the need to write a book because, the last really good veterinary books that were written by James Harriet.
Yeah.
And, in his time, there were very, very few women. I mean, like very few women. Women that are 70 now, you would have probably, gosh, your chances of getting in veterinary school would have been like 1 in 10,000 probably. I mean, it was so rare. But now there are classes that are 100% women graduating from veterinary schools.
And do you feel like that's just because the males are not applying, or they're applying but they're just not meeting the requirements, and girls are fairly beating them out? Like, has it gotten to a point where admissions are purposely, selecting so many men?
No, I don't think it's purposeful, but I think what happened with the men, the debt to income ratio in veterinary medicine has gotten crazy. I mean, the cost of our school is so high compared to the income. And I'm sure you guys that have taken a pet to the vet recently don't believe that, but it's there's a lot of corporations owning veterinarians clinics now. We can talk a little bit about that, but when the men started to see the debt to income ratio get so out of joint, I mean, with the physician it's like 1 to 1. With veterinarians it's like almost 2 or 3 to 1, so the debt to income got too high and the men started going toward the technology because they were, a lot of times the breadwinners of their family.
And it's so obviously you grew up with large animal. I mean, so was there any when you go to vet school, you do have to study both small and large, correct?
Yeah, yeah, you have to study everything because you have to pass the national board exam. So you're tested on every domesticated species and other random things that I probably got all the questions wrong for, but that's okay. There's only a few of those.
I mean, and so for you, obviously, there was not a choice, small or large, or did you find like maybe anywhere through your schooling, that you at least looked at it? Did you have to internship in small animal areas anywhere? Like, so did they force you to try all the different things, even though you came in headstrong knowing what you wanted to do?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I even worked at a small animal clinic while I was on the dairy farm just to get experience, and be well-rounded. And then when I got there, I mean, they make you go through all these rotations. So you have to do everything. Like whatever you like and whatever you don't like and that's good. I mean, if you're going to be certified to do these things, you should like what you do. You should be able to do those things.
And I'm sure too, it's a matter of, like you said, not only what you like, but then also what you're willing or able to do. So I know the majority of people that are with us this evening, of course, I would probably say most people, dare I say everybody, has a pet. But, for the majority, we're talking, small animals. So that's a whole different experience. And, other than probably listening to a lot of my stories and, being up on things that are happening on the farm, I know just at least off the top of my head, Catherine Quirk, who's with us this evening, is involved with horses. So, but overall, I think there's probably fewer people, if any at all, that understand the difference in the days. So obviously you were well prepared. Now, do you work by yourself? Do you work for a practice?
No, so I own the practice and it's mobile, like it's ambulatory practice, and there's two veterinarians and then three staff members.
Okay. So, but wait, so that's interesting because we don't really have anything like that in our area. So as a mobile vet, which large animal vets are, but do you have a brick and mortar where large animals can go to, or do you serve a small animal there, or is it just you're all on the road?
No, mostly on the road, but we operate out of my house. So where you're seeing now, like you're like in the little office area where the girls dispatch with my IKEA cow in the background and my goat tea towel. That one's a winner. But like this is where the girls
Mm.
dispatch us from. And
Okay.
so that's it was easier for me to raise a child doing this with and then my garage that's attached is like a vet clinic. I mean, it's just lots of drugs and an autoclave and sinks, and it smells like disinfectant, typical, right? But that we do have like small ruminants show up at my house pretty routinely. So I mean, it looks like the Chick-fil-A drive-through in the goat just budding season, I mean, it's just like people don't know what we're doing here.
We've got lots of questions in the chat for you. Everyone's
Oh,
very
good.
fascinated.
Cool.
So Michelle would like to know, do you feel vets do more radiology readings themselves and blood work is lab specific home run, or is it outsourced?
That's a good question. It used to be all done by the veterinarians in the clinics, but now with the AI technology, you can get veterinary software where it will read the x-rays for you. I mean, I haven't tried that. I don't know. But we don't have an x-ray on our truck. We just have access to an x-ray if we need to send somebody. But I put lots of cast on animals. Don't get me wrong. But I feel with my hands the breaks. And then I cast it, and then I put a mark with vet wrap on the cast where the break was. So when I take the cast off, I can just recheck and make sure the bone's starting to form a callus. So you don't even always have to have all that expensive technology. um, but yeah, some of that's really the young veterinarians are crippled by the fact that that can be outsourced. They're not thinking anymore. They use Chat GPT now. I don't even know how to use Chat GPT. I don't even know if you have to have an app. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. But I don't, I'm like at this point in my career, I don't need an AI robot trying to tell me how to do it. Plenty of people try to interpret that for me from their phone, and that does not go well. I can tell you
Gotta
that
be
doesn't go
so
well.
frustrating between all like a regular doctor, everybody's going to like what is it, like the WebMD?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
now you must have so many people thinking that they're gonna be like diagnosing and telling you what to do.
I'm all about people doing their own research. I have no problems with that. Mad props. And you have to do with what you have. But you have to have a brain that can decipher what is a credible source and what is not a credible source. But if you have a good, trusting relationship with your veterinarian, that should always be a credible source.
Yeah,
Jillian,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry.
No, go
Jillian also asked, do you have to decide small versus large animal when you start, or do you pick or get put into that area later?
No, you don't. At Virginia Tech, they have a tracking program. So usually by your second year, you have a tracking, preference, and that's what you follow, and you get more externships in the area you want to work in your last year. But no, a lot of schools don't have that. And you can track mixed and say, I don't know what I want. I like everything. I just want a bit of everything. So it doesn't paint you into a corner per se. It just gives you that option. If you want more of that focused experience, you can have it.
Okay.
ahead.
We've got lots of questions
Yeah,
rolling
I
in.
know. And I was gonna say, and I'm catching up on them too. But and actually, because the one thing I want to go back to that I'm super curious. So you do not travel with a portable X-ray machine or anything.
Mm-mm.
Interesting. Yeah, even with so I work with two of our local community colleges that have, 2-year vet tech programs. And actually, even as part of that for their accreditation, they just have to go through the process of, x-raying both on the farm and then they do their small animal clinic work. So we actually have my veterinarian that I use, come in with his portable x-ray machine, and then they practice, one of them's, holding the one of them was holding the machine, one of them holding the plate, and then doing the X-ray and then pulling it up onto his computer, his laptop, so the students can see the work that they've done. So I would imagine, in many ways, it is so useful. Thankfully, I've not had to use it on my own animals on my farm, but I find that interesting. Is that normal for your area, like versus our area, that vets don't travel with that?
Yeah, yeah, I would say it's kind of normal here.
All right.
Yeah.
And, so Sue, to answer your question, I saw she was asking about like whether or not animals need to be sedated for that. So, at least I would say for the most part, you're trying to do those x-rays with them not sedated, because at least with large animal, anytime you're sedating an animal, especially, you don't want them to be down or what we call recumbent, because then you got to worry about them waking back up, and that's just a nuisance. So at least in our experience, most of the time you're taking the x-rays while they're awake and then just praying to God or holding your breath that they stand still.
It depends how much your machine costs and how bad the
Yeah,
animal's acting. Those two things determine what you do with that sedation.
that's a good point. That's for sure, because you certainly don't want to get that machine kick that probably costs beyond thousands and thousands of dollars. I can't
Yeah,
even.
there's an old saying in veterinary medicine called better living through chemistry.
Yes, yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, the one veterinarian that teaches our program, he talks about that all the time. So
That
that's my
kind of
fun.
ties into Michelle's question. Do you feel vets need to have the really strong diagnostic skills and observation since the animals have limited speech?
Yeah, I mean, that's one reason I love being a veterinarian, because you have to learn that. Like doctors, human physicians should have to learn on you without you being able to talk to them. All 4 years of medical school, they shouldn't be able to talk to their patients, and they would be better doctors, because you have to use every sense that God gave you to figure it out. And I mean, I try to use the sense of taste kind of sparingly in my job, but all the other ones, fair game. But yeah, so, and there's times where I do that. I mean, you might milk a mare to see if her milk is getting sweet, because that means it's time for her to deliver the baby. But, I mean, every single thing I use every day. And I'm glad I don't have, like, I had to learn with just no internet, no phone. I mean, we had CBs when I started. So I had a book, and I hope it was the right book behind my seat, and I had an old farmer with a lot of knowledge. And I guess I could have made a smoke signal if I got in bad shape and needed a helicopter or something. But I mean, that's about what I had to work with, and it made me better because of it. And I think it's really important that veterinarians develop those diagnostic skills.
I mean, and I would think you'd hope that that's where the owner is somewhat helpful, but a lot of times there's owners that are not knowledgeable themselves. And at least I know what I always say to my students, to people who work for me, you have to know what normal is before you know what not normal is. But sometimes that's hard if you don't know the animal. Like I know my animal, I know their
Right.
behaviors. So, that's not always the easy part when you're just potentially showing up. And does it happen for you a lot? Maybe it's, I hope it would be different, but you get an emergency call. Do you oftentimes get emergency calls from people that aren't your clients, and then you've got no background information? Or do you find that in your area, are you pretty much, working with and establishing a history with your customers versus, getting the random calls?
We have both in my area. Like we have 3,000 clients in the computer that two of us service in 15 counties. So there, but every weekend and holiday, there's all new random people we have never heard of before, and they are all very needy, and they call until you call them back. So, that can be kind of frustrating, because a lot of them are brand new goat owners. They've rescued a goat from Craigslist. Don't rescue anything from Craigslist. It's like there shouldn't be animals traded on Craigslist, but if you get those, you're going to have issues. I can promise you that. So, and I do feel bad for the people, because they're trying to do right by the animals, but they don't have a freaking ass clue what they're doing. So, there I am trying to help them, and just frustrated by the whole situation. So, yeah, we get an equal number of, we try so hard to get all of our people established. We're like, the minute you say you're going to get an animal, have us out to just do a meet and greet and make sure you have the right facilities and all those things. That's so
Oh,
important.
absolutely. Unfortunately, though, that doesn't always happen. And so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand exactly what you're saying. So tell people what your days are like. I mean, so that's the other thing too. I'm sure they can surmise, but I'm curious because again, all I know to go by is my area. Your area could be completely different. And if there's two of you operating out of your practice, um, do you guys alternate evenings? Do you alternate holidays, or do you shut down at some point? Like, where are your boundaries, your schedule in terms of as a large animal vet? Because unlike small animal, you get to close the doors. And then there's either other hospitals, maybe, again, it could be different in your area, but there's other hospitals then that will service the evening hours, the emergencies, that kind of stuff. So you never really hear of a small animal vet being on call,
Yeah,
right?
they've forgotten what that means, unfortunately. But people have gotten more needy. I understand their problem with that. But no, we never shut down. Like, we don't ever shut down, ever, because there's two of us. So somebody's on call all the time. Um, and we use an answering service to answer the night calls. So, and that's always interesting because I don't know. They could be in Boston. I don't know, and they're like, what? A bull? Is it a boy or a girl? I mean, they have a list of questions they have to ask the callers. So sometimes that's offensive to the farmers. So like they ask if my bull was a boy or a girl, and I'm like, hey, they could be in Boston. Just give them a little break. But they did get you help, so the answering service will text me, and that's less invasive. But Katie and I share calls. I mean, the nights I have shared custody of my daughter who's 9. So the nights I have her, I get to be with her, and the nights I don't have her, then Katie's on call, or I'm on call those nights, and Katie's on call when I have her. So it works out well, so.
Saturdays and Sundays.
Saturdays and Sundays and Christmas and everything in between. Yeah.
And
Now,
John,
the workday hours are both of you running at the same time, and then you just alternate evenings.
Right. Yep, that's right. Yeah,
And
and
what?
no 2 days are ever the same. No 2 days are ever the same. When people are like, "What's your typical day?" I'm like, "What's a typical day?" I mean,
Yeah.
I start out sometimes with that grand idea of a typical day. I have a schedule, and then it just gets blown all to hell when everybody in all areas just start having emergencies. So.
Well, and that's what I was just going to lead into. So, list the animals that you work with. I mean, maybe let us know predominantly, and then actually, that's why I was curious too, because if yourself and the other vet are running, let's say Monday to Friday, together simultaneously, I'm assuming there might be calls you'll take that she won't take, or are you guys both in the same? Like, does either one of you have a specialty, or is it just geographically wherever she is versus where you are, like, in terms of the animals that you see? That was kind of
Yeah, so we see beef, a lot of beef cows, some dairy cows, lots of goats, sheep, llamas and alpacas, pigs, both the kind like in your house and the kind outside of your house. Um, Poultry, Katie does more with the poultry stuff. Meat rabbits, I don't know a freaking thing about a rabbit, so don't ask me. That is not my specialty, and I'm not even good at euthanizing a rabbit. That's so we do kind of have some specialties. Like I do all the artificial insemination of the cows, and Katie does a lot with the meat rabbits. She does a lot with the poultry. So we do have things we're more interested in, I guess, in ways, but those are the main species. We euthanize animals at home for people, small animals, just as a service, like for them not to have to go into a veterinary clinic once again. And we do a little bit with horses, just covering for some horse vets if they're out of town. And
Yeah,
then
I
we
didn't. I
do
have to
animal
interrupt. I
control.
didn't even realize that when you were running down the list. So, is that so big that you have other large animal vets that are solely just doing horses? That's not
Yeah.
wrapped up into your
hmm
lineup?
Yeah, that's huge around here. Just equine only practices, and there's quite a number of them.
Wait, so then my other question for you would be is then how many practices are there like yours? So for instance, in our area, it's equally huge in terms of like the equine industry here. So all of our large animal vets are basically horse vets, and then you just have to get lucky to find one that's willing to see the other stuff.
Right.
We don't have any vets that are just specializing in small ruminant. So is that, so how, so now I'm like, are there other people like you, or are you guys a bit more unusual in that sense?
No, there's other people, but like in a 30 county area, there's probably 4 practices like mine. Mine would be one of those 4.
Okay.
So,
I'd like to jump in with some questions if I may.
sure.
John would like to know what areas you two cover.
So I start in Louisa, Virginia every day, and then I cover about a 60-mile radius around Louisa.
Okay. And Jillian would like to know, how often do you get called for an emergency that is for something that could have been handled as a routine thing sooner if the owner would have called sooner, not counting animals that go on adventures and get in trouble and need ASAP situation type of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. The good part about having some age on you in this job is you can smell the liars from the telephone. Like you can learn to smell a liar through the phone. Like somebody who's playing you like a deck of cards to reading off the AI Google thing tell you the buzzwords to get you out there when they don't really have an emergency. I'm like, your goat is not bloated. I promise you. In 21 years, I've seen about 3 goats that were bloated, and they all ate 50 pounds of chicken feed. Did your goat eat 50 pounds of chicken feed? No, it's not bloated. It's probably full of worms. No, it's not full of worms. And I'm like, I bet it is. So, am I coming out at 2 a.m. for your goat that's full of worms? No, not a chance. Not a chance. I'll see you tomorrow. We can talk all about the worms and how to get rid of the worms and what bloat looks like and what it doesn't look like. But I can tell you tonight, it doesn't look like your goat. So,
Okay.
we get lots of that, and it can be frustrating.
And that leads into Michelle's question. Have you ever done televisits versus in person for like a certain type of visit?
Yes, we're really trying to figure that out. We're trying to get better at that because it saves us a lot of driving. Katie does a bunch of that for the poultry because no one wants to pay like an
Yeah.
office visit to come to the driveway's $30. I think that's worth more than the chicken. So I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to come here and pay $30 for your chicken when that exceeds the value of the animal. So a lot of times she'll just do a Zoom with them or a FaceTime call. We do have people send us like these cell phones are amazing in the videos that they can get. Like I'm like, oh, you think your animal's neurologic? Send me a short video. A lot of times you can tell from the short video, do I need to make a trip to you or do I not need to make a trip to you? So yeah, I mean, there's a good mix of things, but you gotta be able to figure out who has real emergencies and who doesn't and how they can help you with the technology, even a picture sometimes. Some of the 80-year-old guys at that farm, you have to be like, go get your granddaughter. She can take a picture and text it to me. Just tell her this number, this number.
That's great. And on the other hand, I mean, so I'm curious, are you juggling all of that while you're running around, or do you utilize, you said you have 3 staff, and of course that's not including the service that you're using for the after hour calls.
Right.
So your are the staff based there, are they handling these things for you, or are you kind of just doing all this on the run?
Yeah, so we have one vet assistant so we split her. We take whoever, and we usually have some
Oh, so you have
veterinary
somebody
students.
that rides with you and goes with you.
Yeah, so a lot of times one or the other of us has our helper.
Okay.
Whoever needs the helper has the helper. And then one girl works in the office. She helps me sell books. She wrangles my child from time to time. And so she's my kind of right hand. And then the other one that works in the office is about a 72-year-old licensed veterinary technician. And she runs the office, and she is amazing. And she dispatches things, triages things, does the health papers, does the controlled drug logs, all those things that make a veterinarian be successful.
That is amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not even in our area, which is as I would say, predominantly probably more affluent than where you are. They don't bring, I don't know a single vet that actually has people going with them, which I'm sure can be a struggle. And that probably makes your job easier because I'm sure there's plenty of times you go places, although you would expect the owners to be able to handle the animals. I'm assuming, is that where you're using your assistant for, or just as well to, get things together that you need for the visit? Like, how do you find having that extra set of hands helpful?
Yeah, mostly, like with restraint of the animals and working the cattle chutes and vaccinating while you're pregnancy checking. And they're just an extra set of hands and they help keep you safe because a lot of people don't actually know how to handle animals safely.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So, do you expect the owners to also be part of that process? Or
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I'm like, you know what? It would be better, Jim, if you stayed right here where I put you. Just stay right here and don't just be quiet. Just be quiet and stand here.
oh
So
my gosh.
it's just like kids. I mean, it's like some of them are really helpful and some of them are not helpful. Same with the owners.
Have you ever, has anybody ever said that if you decide that you don't want to be a veterinarian, you could be like a stand-up comic vet?
Sometimes I get that, yes.
Absolutely. And I feel like too, I don't know, it was coming up on my Instagram. There was some comedian, and I want to say she like, if you could specialize as a comedian in like horse stuff. And it's really funny if you understand, like that whole world in that
Oh, yeah.
sense. But at the same time, I'm sure you have to have a sense of humor to get through this day in and day out, no?
Yeah, for sure. That's why I made the book, very humorous because I felt like at that time in history, we all needed some lightheartedness in our life, especially when we're trapped in during COVID. I'm like, people just need to laugh about something or at somebody and I'm like, I'm good with that. I don't care. I'll be that girl.
Well, and that probably rolls into because I know Jillian's asking about like interesting stories and things like that. So, I mean, I that the book obviously will tie into that because I think everybody always wants to know like the stories of what's the funniest thing that happened, what's the worst thing that happened, what's the craziest thing you've seen. So did this happen during COVID? Is that where this all came about, or because you did not have to stop? I mean, you're obviously considered an agricultural service, so you
Right.
were able to still service just like I was actually I was down your way as soon as COVID hit. I was getting on the road to go down south, which was bizarre. I have to tell you because I'd be down south and I'm like looking around. I'm like, I'm like, because it hit us, it was us first. First of all, I was either the target, right? I either had the red bullseye on my license plate because it said New York, or
Right.
I'm down south and I'm like, everyone's like wanting to touch me, hug me. Now, I was not like a complete like germaphobe about it. That was not my
Right.
position. Sorry, but we still didn't know about it. And I'm like, you guys know something's going on, right? Like down south, nobody had any clue. Like you would have not known anything was going on at all. I'm like, guys, you need to catch up on this a little bit. Like, I mean, it was like clueless. I mean, it made it comfortable in that sense, but
Oh yeah, they didn't care. They're like, we eat red meat and drink whiskey. By God, we're this whatever this is isn't gonna kill us. And it's like, okay. I mean, good, good.
so that's so if this came out of it, it's not because you had spare time on your hands.
No, I mean, most of the book was written from 21 to 22. I had a little bit of spare, tiny bit, but a lot of the meetings were canceled that I spoke at and did stuff at, so that helped free up a little bit of time, but no, there was no real time.
So was this an intention of yours always, like the stories in the back of your head that you knew one day you wanted to get it on paper, or what was the impetus for finally making it happen?
I just told those stories a lot. Like I'm a storyteller, so I like to tell the story. So I never actually wrote any of those stories down. I told those stories a lot of times while having a beverage at a pub or with other veterinarians or other clients who said, "What's the weirdest thing that's happened to you today? Or what's the funniest thing?" And so I told a lot of those. And then this client of mine, she's like, "Come on, write them down." And I was like, "No, I don't have time." She's like, "Just do it, try it." And I'm like, "It won't be funny." And that was the thing I worried about the most. I'm like, "It won't be funny. No one wants to just hear me write down some of my boring story." And so I submitted a manuscript. I wrote some of them down. I'm like, "This is so boring." And the publisher said, "Hey, you know what you need? A book coach." And I'm like, "What is a book coach?" They're like a person who will help you find your voice that you're looking for and make these stories sound like you telling them. And I said, I don't believe a paper can do that. And they said, it absolutely can. And so I met this lady from Boston who became we wonderful friends. But, she helped me find my voice. And so once I could find it, I'm like, oh, here, hold on, let me write you another story. Because then I knew what I was doing a little bit better. And there's always the grammar queens out there that can fix all of that. They're like, just do your thing. We'll fix all the grammar. I'm like, perfect.
So did she take your story and did she, like, I know it's not a ghostwriter, or did she coach you so that ultimately you still wrote all this in your voice, if you will?
Yeah, and no, all the words are mine. She basically gave me homework all the time. She was like the whip cracker of the operation. She's like, read this book on how to find your voice, how to write a memoir. She's like, you need to turn these stories into a memoir, make it really a story about your life and tie it together. So I had to read books about that, and then like 4,000 ways to describe a character. So I'm driving around Central Virginia trying to work, listening to 4,000 adjectives to describe characters. Because she's like, you can't describe a character just in a boring way. Everyone wants you to be quirky, that we want to know their quirks. And I'm like, but I'm a good old Southern girl. Like, we are nice. We are nice. Like, I had that beaten into me with like fly swatters, and sticks and stuff. I'm like, we're supposed to be nice. And she was like, well, you got to be quirky to do this job. So I'm like, all right, all right. So then I had to start paying attention to details. If I wrote a story about fall in Virginia, I still had another fall to go through in Virginia before, this book would be finished. So I'm like, let me start looking at the leaves. Which trees drop their leaves at what point? What do they smell like? And what do they sound like when I run over them with the truck? And so then you start paying attention to details, or how somebody talks if you're going to describe them, or weird like things about their eyebrows, or, so you had time to sort of fill in the details to make people feel like they were really there with you.
That sounds like a whole lot of dedication. I
It
mean,
is. It
no,
was.
really.
I mean,
So, I mean, and again, I don't know where you would have the time for that. So, really, like, what became, I mean, that's a commitment. So, is it that you're just that type of person that once you sunk your teeth into it, you're like, damn it, I'm going to get this done? Or did you really like start to enjoy it? I mean, that's a big commitment.
yeah,
I
it
would
was
have
it
imagined
was
to
a lot
slap
of.
some stories down and then been like, okay, somebody else can just, like, fix them up for me.
Yeah, and it was nothing like that. Like, you had to really work at it. Even when I was writing about being pregnant, trying to put a cow's uterus back in while I was pregnant, and I'm on the ground, and I was like, how do I describe this? Because I don't even remember it at this point. So my neighbor Karen and I, we drink sometimes together, and I'm like, Karen, get over here. I'm like, I don't remember what this is like. She's like, then you should reenact it. And I'm like, oh gosh, how much have you had to drink, Karen? She's like, quite a bit. So let's just strap a pillow under your shirt. And she's like, you were about this big when you were pregnant. Now let's put the recliner chair up, and we're going to make a uterus, out of a pillow. And then you have to start pushing on it. And I'm like, that's sort of what it felt like. But I never realized writing could be so physical, I guess. But to really make me remember, I had to relive some of those things.
And so, I mean, of course, I get so interested in, like, the business and those details and those aspects. But so, first of all, then, where did the title come from? So which story is gave you this title, and what happened?
Yeah, so the title story is actually in the middle of the book. So, because you don't want to put it first, because if the guys sometimes are guilty of just reading the part that says naked, and then they don't read any more of the book. So I buried it in there in the middle. But I mean, it was a true story. I had to actually think of which time I wanted to write about that I had done this. I'm like, which time was the most entertaining time that I had to do this? But I went to put a uterus back in a cow, and it was fall, so it was cold. And this involves a lot of water and a lot of lube and a lot of pushing and a lot of fluid and blood and all those things soaked through my clothes repeatedly, until, I mean, even my underwear were wet. And I don't, I grew up on a farm. I'm a dirty girl, like, no doubt about that. But when you're wet and cold, you have to do something to save yourself. So my solution was just to strip and turn the heater on in the truck. And I'm like, it's night now, I'll be going home at night. But where I really think I might have messed up is I was gonna thirst to complete death. After I did this was like 2.5 hours of the most physical work you can imagine. So I knew I couldn't go in anywhere. I couldn't even pull off and ask anybody to go in anywhere. So it's like, I'm just gonna grab a little blue towel, surgical towel from my truck and throw it over me and go through the McDonald's drive-in. But the part I didn't think about, I could protect my, breast with the towel, but the blood, like when I stuck my I mean, I had blood all the way up to my ear hole and my neck and everything. So when I stuck my hand through to hand the lady my money, and I ordered 4 large sweet teas, which that had to be a little suspect for one person in the vehicle. But, I reached my bloody hand through and I saw her calling 911. And I was like, no, 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 no. She's like, did you kill somebody? And I'm like, would I tell someone if I killed someone? But I'm like, listen here, lady. You're going to see the vet box on this thing when I pull up. You have to believe me that I've been working my ass off. And please, for God's sakes, if you do call the cops, give me the sweet tea, please, or water, anything, because I'm going to die. You won't even have to worry about it. So that was the thing that made it unique that night because I was about to thirst to death.
Now, of course, somebody's going to say, well, haven't you learned your lesson? Don't you have spare clothes?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
don't you run around with handy wipes? Like, I'm sorry, I've like gotten smart in my, later years, and I've got, packages of baby wipes and, things like that. For, I even will come, I will have a nail brush, and sometimes I'll have, like, if I really feel like it, because you do get really weird looks, when you are, on the road and want to stop and do something, or, you can't ever get the dirt out from underneath your nails. And so sometimes I try to clean up. But so I'm curious, like, did you finally learn your lesson, or it's just, pure entertainment sake?
It's always like some middle school 4-H'er asked me that question, like, don't you have a spare shirt? Don't you have a wipe? Don't you have water? Of course I do. Usually have 30 gallons of water on the truck, but after you wash a uterus 2 or 3 times, you don't have any water. I'm like, when have you ever had a spare shirt when you needed a spare shirt? Have you ever had a spare shirt when you needed a shirt? No, nobody's ever had that when they needed it. Now I have one out there. Have I used that thing? And no, I haven't used that thing in 3 months. So it's there, keeping the truck warm.
So Jillian would like to know what happens, like how does the uterus come out of a cow, and is that a normal thing? And
Yeah,
everyone is saying that this is amazing.
It's not really normal per se, but if she has a big calf, especially if people pull really hard on it, or she gets really low in calcium, or she's old, she just loses elasticity back there, and that thing can flop out. And I mean, it's bigger than a 5 gallon bucket, and it's got to go back in through her vulva. So, I mean, it is like you look at it and you have to believe that things that came out can go back in. I mean, it's you look at it and you think there's no way in hell this is going to work, but you can do it. I mean, it just takes lots and lots of patience,
Do
and you
you
have to be so careful how you work with it.
do you use sugar? Like, I know that was an old.
That's an old wives' tale, and I'll tell you what, I've poured 2 pounds of sugar on some cows, and I'm like, well, it's not going in, but it will be sweet,
Well,
But
it ends up
no.
looking like raspberry jam by
Oh,
the
it's
time
just,
it's
yeah,
done.
it doesn't work. I can see why the old timers that worked in their mind, but no, it really doesn't work.
Yeah,
No.
that was one of our old time vets. It was like something he would recommend, and I remember I got stuck doing that at one point in time, and that's all I remember thinking is, I'm like, this sort of looks gross, but if you're hungry, it sort of looks good. So I'm not really sure which way to go. Um,
Yeah.
but and then for every and I'll say, just to relate to that, for those of you that have been with me, especially since most of this community that I have here, Melinda, kind of really developed through COVID. I mean, for us, I mean, that was one of the great things. All of our fiber festivals, all of the things in which we would engage with people in the public got shut down, and then of course we were all stuck, selling things virtually, doing everything virtually. So for me, in that sense, it was a great switch because maybe much like yourself, I can see everyone knows I could be on here talking to nobody for hours and hours. So it really worked out well and really helped us to develop this community. And, of course, we've lost some along the way as people go back to, their regular lives. But I mean, I've maintained a lot of things on here because there's people on here that are so far away that I would never get to, be able to see them at a venue or anything like that. So
Right.
that all to say, since most of you started to get involved with me between 20 and 21, if you guys remember, 21 was a really bad year for us. And for those of you that remember, Mackenzie, she was Stewie's mom. So she was on her last Kriya, and she carried full term. And this is just sharing this with you, Melinda. And she carried full term, but towards the end, I mean, she was full term. All of a sudden, she went off feed, and she just wasn't acting right in that sense. And then I had the vet come to do an ultrasound, see, because that was, of course, I'm like, okay, is the baby still alive? And at that point, the baby looked like it was, but it was probably slowing down. So ultimately, it just ended up being one morning that I didn't go out there super early to check on her, and she passed the baby that had died, but she had major complications, I guess, trying to get it out. She wasn't terribly old, but she was older, and so she ended up passing the baby, prolapsing her uterus.
Mm.
So by the grace of God, at that time we didn't have a barn, and so she was in shock, and she actually got up for me and walked to the gate so we could get her in the trailer, and then I took her over to our local farm I used to work at. We tried for like 3 days, but what had happened was, despite getting that uterus back in, she must have had an internal tear somewhere, so she had internal bleeding going on. We actually even gave her a transfusion with her aunt. So we brought her aunt in, and it was amazing to see her perk up for a little bit. So I was hopeful, but then again, as that bleeding started happening again, that's where we realized what it must have been. So so it's not something that you come across a lot, but some of you, would probably remember that experience, because by then I was kind of committed to these people, and I'm like, well, hell, whether it's good or bad, you're going to be, stuck on this journey. But I remember in the beginning, it was really hard to share the hard things, because I felt like personally responsible, for bringing everybody along the sorrowful journeys, but then when you have the higher points too. So, I mean, in terms of, sharing your stories and telling your stories, I mean, everything, of course, you try to keep it humorous, but did you ever include stories in here that were maybe more of the heartfelt, or, things that had different feelings to the stories, or are they all comical stories?
No, that was like you say, it's tough to share the hard things, but I certainly didn't want to glamorize veterinary medicine because this is really a lifelong commitment. So I didn't want to glamorize it, and I wanted to mix up the emotion just so people know what it really is like day to day. So I tried to mix up all the different emotions, all the seasons, all the species that we see, and give you a little bit of taste of everything. But yeah, I mean, because and some of the heartfelt stories more have to do with the people that I've met along the way through animals. But a preacher one time told me, I used to think, being from the mountains, only a preacher could have a calling. But a preacher told me, she said, no, no, anybody can have a calling. A calling is where your gifts and talents meet the needs of the world. And I'm like, that's interesting. So I'm like, I guess mine is a calling. So that's kind of the premise of the book, is like how I meet people, some of these people and some of these animals bring me to people that need help, and what I can do in my community to help. So part of it is about people. It's people stories that I've met along the way.
Now, I know you have the children's book, and it sounds like there's more than one, but is this your only, like, I don't want to say adult read?
Yeah, yeah. One time, I had the funniest thing happen here recently. A couple months ago, this little girl and her mom brought this little tiny pig. I mean, that thing couldn't have been that big to get a shot here. And the mom, I could tell the little girl was shy. She was about 7 or 8 years old, and she had freckles all over her face. And she was turning red, and her mom's like, "Oh, she's a big fan of yours." And I said, "Oh, yeah." She said, "She's read your book." And I said, "Oh, you've read the goat book?" And she said, "You have a goat book?" And I was like, "Oh, hell, she's the read Driving Home Naked." She's like, "I've read it 3 times." I was like, I said, what do you do when you come to a part that you think's questionable? And her mom said, we just say we'll talk about that later. And in 5 minutes, she asked if we can talk about it. And she's like, maybe when you're 15. And I'm like, yep.
There needs to be like one of those in the in the beginning, cautionary tale for readers above a certain age or something like that. So
Yeah, there's been some real young readers, but hey, I'm like, if you're mature enough to handle it, good on you. You're probably the kind of people that I need to be able to retire, like, yeah.
for sure. Now I have to ask, um, and I don't know the proper term for it, but when you get to put on the front of your book a worthwhile read, Temple Grandin, how do you? Because and so some people probably know Temple Grandin. I'm sure maybe many more people don't. So however you want to address that, I'll let you do that.
Yeah, so the book company is always like, okay, who would you like to endorse your book? And you have all kinds of ideas of who you would like to endorse your book, all kinds of famous people that you would like to endorse your book. But I'm like, to me, who would this book be meaningful to? And she's Temple Grandin's probably one of the first people I thought of because if you guys don't know her, I mean, she is an autistic woman who teaches at Colorado State. She still teaches. She's almost 80 years old, but she's designed basically every meat handling plant, packing plant in our country to make it more welfare friendly to the animals that are going to slaughter. And she just does a lot for animal welfare, for autism awareness, and she's amazing. So I was like, that may be one I can actually get to bite on to this. So I signed up to go to one of her cattle meetings, and afterwards she sells books. So I had Driving Home Naked was just a manuscript, so it was like this much in a manila envelope. It has to look sketchy as hell, I mean, so nobody wants to read that. I mean, I wouldn't want to read that. I want to read a book, but it's not a book yet. Before it's a book, it's 300 pages of paper. So I put all this in a manila envelope and I bought one of her books and she signed it. And I'm like, hey, I have a favor to ask of you. Would you read this book? And I said, hell, if you don't like it, you're going to Colorado. It's cold. Just use it for a fire starter and don't tell anybody. And she was kind of like looked at me sideways. But I knew she was getting on an airplane, and I knew she didn't have much to do with that telephone. So she got on the airplane, read the whole thing on her way back to Colorado. So I get home, barely get home the next night, and she calls my house number, and she's like, I'll endorse your book. I was like, really? She said, yeah. She's like, let's talk a little bit first. And so she said, now you have my number if you ever need anything. And so we've actually become really, really good friends through all of this. And that's probably been worth every bit of work that I ever did for that book is her friendship.
That's amazing. We it's interesting. Can you comment in terms of you can't always sometimes have just like regular conversation with her.
I can because I was worried about it at first. I picked her up at the airport. We were going to teach a cattle women class together. So they told me to go pick her up at the airport, and I'm like, I'd love to, but I was worried about it. I'm like, how do you talk to somebody with autism for that long and not overstimulate them?
Right.
You
And
talk for
she has severe autism. It's not
severe, yeah.
yeah, it's not the various spectrums that there seem to be today. She's severely autistic.
Yep, and she's worked through so much of that. I mean, she's amazing. And so, but well, I'm like, I'm just going to talk to her like I would talk to a friend. And if it's too much, I guarantee she'll tell me, shut up. So we're driving along and we just chatted like we've known each other for a long time. And then I wasn't sure when I took her back. We chatted on the way back too. And I was like, not sure how to greet her goodbye. I put her bags out and I was like, gosh, I really have enjoyed this weekend. And she said, me too. And she hugged me. And I'm like, this is a girl who wouldn't hug her mother when she was, I don't know how old she was when she first hugged her mother.
Yeah.
And, but she's worked through all of that. I mean, she's just amazing in that way.
It's interesting. Yeah, I was wondering because in the early days, I mean, it actually wasn't that long ago. We've had her come and speak several times. We have llama conferences.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
llama conferences, and she's spoken at those. But she talked about like in the earlier days that she actually had somebody who would travel with her, like to help her field questions and to kind of like be her assistant, in
right.
that sense. So I guess yeah, that's why I was curious about that because she does have a very funny way about her and almost like a very dry sense of humor. Like there's that lack of affect,
Right.
in some ways too. And probably one of my funniest stories with her is we got her, she ended up sitting down needle felting with us. And so she's needle felting away and, she kind of gets done and she's like, it looks like a bull testicle. I just thought that was like the funniest thing ever, and she just kind of chuckled and, just kind of went about her needle felting. So, it's always a great experience. I mean, she's absolutely incredible. And that's why I was curious about this. I had the fortune to be part of a small like mini documentary that Isabel Rossellini produced through the Livestock Breed Conservancy about the benefits of wool and like why you need to shear sheep to kind of be like against the not against to support the feelings that were part of that whole like anti-wool campaign. I mean, I don't know if that stuff like came down your way, but those are things kind of our way. But my point was when I saw the production of it, I mean, I literally cried because they had her as the forward, like talking about it, and I knew nothing about that. And it's such an honor, to be part of that. And then, of course, when they put the production together, I mean, I'm crying watching myself shear, and I was the damn shearer. I was, all you have to do is like slow it down and put some good music to it, and it just pulls at everyone's heartstrings. But I just thought that was pretty incredible to have her, as part of that too. And so that's amazing that you have that experience and that you actually have had the opportunity to, continue a friendship with her too.
Yeah, for sure.
So from here, I have to know. Does this help to pay your bills? Is this just a fun thing? Like, because one of the things I want to tell everybody, I know Erin's been dropping in the chat, to go get the book. And, most of my guys know, like, I would have loved to have just had this on my site for you guys so that not only you get raffle tickets to go in for the basket for TDOC, but it's a way everybody helps, right? Everything's wholesale. But this was one that I couldn't get. And actually, in fact, if I tried to get off of Amazon, it would have cost me more by the time I got done paying tax. So
Yeah.
how does that work for you? Like, is this just a fun thing? Do you get any pennies in your pocket from it?
Yeah, sometimes you do, but it's about like farming. The work that you put into it, if you never get you'll never get that back. But for me it was never about the money anyway, so I think you always have to start a book and it never has to be about the money. I mean, you don't do fiber art because you think it's going to make you a lot of money, right? I mean, if people knew how long it took to spin something up or knit a sweater or you're like, if I did an hourly rate on myself, I'm a fool. I mean, and it's the same with the book, I mean,
Yeah.
but it's like, why am I doing it? And if it suits me and it helps me have, better relations with people all over the place and meet new people, and it's a positive voice for veterinary medicine, then I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take it.
But then like this whole kit. So for everybody, for of course the keepsake basket, I had just asked Melinda if she would send a signed book that we could have in for the basket. So not only, did we get a signed book, but then there's this whole care kit. And so I'm really curious where that came from. So not only do you get the book, but there's soap. Like, do you make this soap?
No, one of my clients made the soap, so I had them
You're
custom.
telling me you're making soap too, writing
No,
books
no,
and a
no, no.
full-time
I just
veterinarian.
take care of her goats and she makes the soap, but I had her make a custom scent for driving home naked because Jasmine was in the book. Like, so that was my alpaca story that was in the book, but Jasmine comes in that story. And so I was like, hey, can you custom make a flavor of soap? Because I'm like, soap seems like something you should put in a driving home naked book.
Well, and because it says on the back, you might need this if you have to drive home naked. So I thought that was great. And then, so where does the lip balm come in on that?
That's just what we could actually, we were trying to find something where you can just sit down and relax and like take care of yourself. And so that's why we put in a coaster and a tea bag and the lip balm and a
Yeah, so
bookmark
there's a
and
coaster,
yeah.
of course, with the background and some good promotional on it, and then the tea bag, and then the lip balm. So under normal circumstances, is that a package people buy? Is that just for promotional fun, or you were like gifting it to clients, or where did that all like come together, and who got it?
We were trying to make things for Christmas, like, because you have to keep things fresh. As you guys know that are selling fiber art and stuff, it's like you gotta figure out a way to make the same product appealing. Like I like those Coswall wreaths, I'm like, hey, the next one I see, I'm gonna make a wreath out of it. But you have to figure out a way to keep things fresh. So we were like, you know what, we're gonna make little gift bags because at Christmas time people are looking, and we sell a lot at the farmers market and that kind of thing. So
Oh,
people are looking for
okay.
little
You're
gifts.
also going to farmers markets to sell your book?
Sometimes, yeah, when I can, yeah. I'm usually on call, so I have to sit at the tent with my pork client, and so we're just under the same tent. And then if I have to leave, she doesn't let me get robbed. It's really a good relationship, but
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, and then when I opened it up, so there's also a sticker, a kettle head, and then there's a bookmark in here as well. And then of course this particular book is signed by you. So yeah, I love that whole like gift package kind of thing. And then when you said I'll throw in one of my children's books.
oh,
So
just yeah, I only have one children's book, but I
okay.
have soft and hard copies of that. But that's a true story. I just wrote up from there was a little girl who was 7 or 8 years old, and she owned that little goat. His name was Ernie, and her parents they were trying to teach her financial responsibility, basically. So they were like, "It's your goat, so it's your responsibility." And every damn thing under the sun happened to that poor goat. Everything you can think of. And that poor girl was paying in like ones and fives and bubble gum wrappers, whatever she could pull out of her pocket. So after about the seventh visit, she said, Dr. Melinda, I feel like this goat's costed me $1 million. And I'm like, I bet you do. Honestly, I bet you do. So I said, one day when you get old enough, I'm like, we'll write that book up as a story, and that goat will pay you back. We'll sell the books when you need books for school. So the interesting part is that little girl now is 21 years old. She's in nursing school, so she actually wanted to become a nurse after taking care of the freaking goat forever. And so I've sent her like at least two payments of $500 for her
Aw.
books. So it's like a real story that came true. I mean, it was easy to write. I did not do the illustrations. That's why it was easy because I lived every bit of that. My daughter thinks it's classic that I have super gray hair in that book. I don't know the artist. I was like, do I really look like I have that much gray hair? But yeah, it's funny when people make you, and I look like I have alpaca eyes. They're humongous. So, but it makes me laugh because I'm like, I have aged in this process.
Well, Melinda, that ties into Sue Nagel's question. You mentioned you have a daughter. Is she interested in working with animals?
I'm going to tell you something about little Lucy. If that girl won the Powerball, she always makes me get her a Powerball ticket if it's over $1 billion. If she won, we would probably live in a double wide and we would have like 58,000 dogs. She would rescue like every dog from every shelter in America. But she loves animals. She's being raised on a dairy farm too at her dad's. But she loves everything about it. And even when, during COVID, I actually had to take her with me to euthanize animals. And people, are kind of judgy about that, but I'll tell you what, I mean, death is a part of life. And if you expose a child to that in a positive way, I think that's a good thing to do. And she oftentimes consoled the people, and actually helped me hold the animal when they couldn't because they were crying too much. And she's like, don't think of it as death. Think of it as a new beginning. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm either going to have some psychotherapist or a preacher on my hands. I don't know, but I'll tell you a good story from the book. Just because this is one of my all-time favorite Lucy stories. She was probably about maybe 5 or 6 years old. And so Julie, that works for me, she brought her cat over to be put to sleep. So Lucy has to come out and stick her nose right in it, you know. And she's like, Mommy, why is Julie bringing a cat here? And I said, Honey, the cat's got to go night night. She's like, Well, where are you going to, how are you going to make that happen? And I'm like, I'm going to give it a little shot. And I'm like, it's going to go see Jesus. And it's like a 20-year-old matted cat with bad breath. Like, you know, they get, I mean, she looked straight at me and she's like, Mom, what on earth would Jesus want with an old dead cat? And I was like, damn, I don't know. I don't know what he wants with an old dead cat. But you know, I was every time I euthanize a 20-year-old cat that looks road hard and put up wet, I think of Lucy. Like, what was Jesus want with that? Like, I don't know.
Oh, and how old was she then?
She was probably 5 or 6 years old, but
Yeah,
she
so you
was
just
thinking all the time. She was thinking, you know, she was paying attention to everything I did.
how many in total stories are in here, like off the top of your head?
Like 51 or
Oh,
52,
there's a
something like
lot.
that. Yeah, and they're short. So, you know, the one thing that's been really made me really happy about the book, it was it was written by a tired person for tired people. So people say, I don't have time to read. I made a book that you don't need time to read. You can read one chapter a night and be through in 52 days. I mean, and they're short. I mean, some of the chapters are like maybe 3 or 4 pages, and some are seven. I mean, but there's you can blow through it. Some of my farmers that they said they almost cried. They're like, "We read a book. We read your book," and I'm like, "Yeah." They said we don't read anything but obituaries and farm articles to keep the farm going, and only if they're short because we fall asleep. So they're like, but we read this book and we're real proud of ourselves. We might read another book. And I'm like, that'd be good, guys. I mean, good job. But yeah, it's really truly, you know, the literary critics on that review books online, oh, you know, they're not farmers. I'm here to tell you, they're not, they don't know anything about farming or being tired or any of that stuff. You know, they're like, the chapters are too short. And I'm like, I bet more people read my book than your book because people are tired.
Well, it's true. And it's nice because then what happens, like I know if I try to read at night, it's like you kind of get into it and then you're like, I don't remember those last couple of pages I read, and then you have to go back again, and then you never get anywhere. So, yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that as well. That probably the only things that I'm reading these days are things that pertain to, you know, work and stuff like that. Otherwise, we say, which that's how I got one of my other guests, then otherwise I'm just doom scrolling in the middle of the night when you can't sleep. And that's so not productive, except we had guests on. I have a mother and daughter from Indiana that make these alpaca yarn bracelets, and they're just killing it. But I found them at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was like the best doom scroll I find I ever had. So other than that, it's usually completely unproductive, and you just need mindless crap to get it through. So, but
Right.
so many people refer to like the James Herriot stories. You know, that's. I think everybody's. I think my childhood was reading those, and you know, or people watching Dr. Pol. How many times do you get that? Like
Oh, yeah.
how are those? And the only reason why I start laughing is because there was a short period in time where there was a woman out of California that had a TV show on Nat Geo Wild, and it was called like Sheer Madness, and it was, you know, and I know who the person is, and some people in the fiber industry even might, but you know, for me, I never sat down to watch it. I don't need to watch it. I live it, you know, not to mention, I know that I'm not, you know, with my long hair flowing, you know, in my white t-shirt and shorts, you know, shearing animals like was being portrayed, right? It wasn't real life. But Dr. Pol is, I don't know, you know what? I've never sat down and watched an episode of it either. Have you?
Only because my daughter likes to watch Dr. Pol, which is maddening, you know, but um, it it's I don't watch it too much because I live it, you know, but I'm like people think that I have lots in common with this 6.5 foot tall, you know, Scandinavian man who rips his shirt off and acts like John Wayne. And I'm like, you know, yeah, do we have some similarities? Sure, you know, but uh it infuriates me sometimes because I'm like, you know, we've come so far in this industry, in the beef cattle industry, the way we give injections. make so many less lesions in the meat, like so many less. And you see him on there jabbing them in the rear end with a big long needle. That's not what we're teaching young people to do, but it's sensationalized, and we give cows epidurals to have babies so they don't have to feel like their hips are being split apart with tractor chains. And I mean, we put them in a cattle chute. I know it's not sexy, but guess what? Tying them to a post and watching somebody get hurt is not what we need to be teaching people. So, yes, is it entertaining? Sure. I mean, and have I done those things? Absolutely. And but I like to think of training young people to do better.
And it's interesting. I mean, I know the comment that you made, but of course, sometimes we like to geek out on those kinds of things. So maybe just talk a little bit about what you were just saying about the injection and, with regards to the meat, because I'm sure that kind of pretty much blew over everybody. But I think that they would find it interesting since a lot of people eat meat.
Right. I mean, yeah, and that's an opportunity to teach in an episode, but I don't know, they don't do a lot of that. It's more just like watch him, swing this rope and get kicked by this horse. And I'm like, I don't really like to see people get trampled.
So, but can you explain to everybody what the significance is in terms of what you were talking about, of what you're trying to teach, people today? Like, what's the significance of where you're injecting the animal if it's a meat animal?
Oh yeah, if you're injecting these beef animals, typically we try to stay up near the neck area where there's like a triangle there that's safe for injection that doesn't damage the expensive cuts of meat. And back in the rear end where some of the farmers used to stick cows back in the butt muscles and across the top, that's where the T-bones are, and that's where the valuable cuts of meat are. So the better we can do with staying up in the cow's neck, the less cuts of meat we can ruin with our specific injections.
And for anyone who's wondering, I mean, all injections have what they call a withdrawal period. So any animal that's getting injected, it can't go to slaughter within that certain time for this withdrawal period. But I don't know that I could ever say that I've seen it on like in a dissection. So does it like bruise the meat? Like what, and then is that part, like if that's there, then that would not be usable because yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times it scars the meat. So, it actually causes damage to the muscle and the enzymes break the muscle down and then makes a scar. And then that part has to be cut out.
So
Yeah.
all the things you don't know. So I'm curious, what's the weirdest animal that you've ever had to see in your practice in all your years outside of the normal?
One weird one that was really weird, and I wrote about this one in the book, but I do have to do in rural Virginia, you have to help animal control because you're mobile. You don't have to, I guess. You could tell them no, but that's also not smart because you need to get out of speeding tickets sometimes. So mostly you say yes, what do you need? And so they were like, there's a lady who owns monkeys. And there's reason to believe she has monkeys housed in Louisa and she's in the hospital. And these monkeys are not getting what they need. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about a monkey except that they carry a lot of the things humans can carry. And I don't know. So we went into this house not knowing what we were going to find. So we found two lemurs in cages and we found a monkey and it was on top of its cage. So I'm like, oh, hell no. Not only is it a monkey, it's a monkey that's not in its cage. So then we had to capture the monkey. So me and the deputies, and let me tell you about how much the deputies know about monkeys. Less than me. So I was like, great. So one of the deputies starts walking close to the monkey cage. And I was like, Steve, back away from the monkey. I don't know much about monkeys, but it didn't look like it was going to stay still. And he took one more step and he's bald headed. And that monkey ran right across his head and its little claw cut a little space in his head. And no joke, he had to go to UVA and he had to get rabies vaccinated. He had to get STD treated for herpes virus. He had to get antibiotics. I mean, there were like 4 or 5 things he had to get because it was a monkey. But anyhow, we did get the monkey into the cage, and Lucy was asleep in the back seat of the truck. So when she opened her eyes, she sees me walk by carrying a monkey in a cage, and she's like, "What is happening?" And I was like, "Well, honey, we had to get a monkey out of this house." So the weirdest part too, you never know what you're going to find when you go in those places. But when we have to check every part of the house, so I had to open the refrigerator and the freezer, and there were two dead monkeys and a pizza, frozen pizza in the freezer. And I was like, oh my God. And somebody said she probably froze the monkeys so she could bury them here, like after they died, so she could bury them here so she wouldn't get in trouble for having monkeys. But I was just like I said, no 2 days are the same. Never did I think I was going to see two frozen monkeys and a pizza.
Were they at least wrapped up?
Not really. No, no. The pizza was wrapped up better than the monkeys.
I mean, only because, like, there's been certain circumstances I get, if you've got a chest freezer or something like that,
Right.
stranger things have happened, but yeah, at least you would do your best to keep it separate from any like food articles or anything like
Yeah, I was just like, ugh.
that. Now, sure, where you are, you probably, because being more in like rural Virginia, but I know, like, for me, the amount of times in which I'm driving around, well, I guess this doesn't apply to you because obviously people know you're a vet. You've got the part on the back and stuff. But I was going to say, or do you ever like go to a store? Like, how many times has maybe like, the top of a needle like fallen out of your pocket, or like I'll be driving around and all of a sudden I'll look down and I've got like a needle in my center console, because I was out on the farm doing something and then just threw it there. Or I mean, one time I was on the road and I actually took a picture of it and I put it on my Instagram story because I thought it was funny, never ever thinking that I would have, first of all, a man follower. Usually most of my followers are women. I mean, now it's changed, but at the same time, and one would be a cop, so of course he thought he would be funny and comment that and that. And I was just like, oh, that's just something you got to remember. You don't know who's watching what you're doing. But your truck is more identified, but there's got to be something like kind of, I guess, along the lines of the McDonald's story of where you had some tool, implement, something, that was where it wasn't supposed to be, or something along those lines.
Oh yeah, like when the TB needles fall out of your, pockets at the gas station bathroom, and people think there's a drug problem, and you're like, no, 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 it's just me. It's not. There's no drug problem. I just didn't throw the stuff out in the right place. But yeah.
So, I'm just trying to catch. Have you ever? Oh, well, that's a good question. So, Jillian's asking if you've ever had to go to the ER because of an animal scratch on the job or anything else. I mean, I'm thinking an animal scratch is probably not the extent of it. So, have you ever gotten seriously injured from your work?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think I don't know what the worst thing is, but I definitely got a zoonotic disease from an animal. I'm not even sure which one, but that was probably put me out of work the longest. But I got Q fever. It's called query fever. So you can imagine how quickly the human doctors copped on this. I was sick for quite a while before they figured this out. And that took me out for a while, but I definitely got that from an animal. And then I got my skull fractured with a pipe that got kicked into my head, and that took a while to get straight from. And then various other things. But yeah,
I don't know, what is Q fever. I've never heard of that either.
it's just a bacterial infection. Yeah,
Okay.
and it makes you so sick. It makes you like I think I had maybe 800 white blood cells in my body, and you're supposed to have like more than 3,000, somewhere between 3 and 9 or 10,000. So it was basically sort of like having leukemia for a while. Um, but yeah, it was no fun. And sheep carry it. That's why you should always wear sleeves and gloves when you're birthing sheep and goats. That's my public health announcement for the day.
Oh, we're laughing because, of course, I'll have to keep that in mind for next time.
Yeah, just keep it in mind because there's a lot of weird, or if you get sick after you've done that and you're not sure what's going on with you, be sure and tell your doctor you've done that barehanded, and that might help them figure out what you have faster.
Yeah, zoonotic disease for anybody who's not sure of that, the word, but you probably surmised from the story. It just means that it's a disease that an animal has that can transmit to humans as well. Because more often than not, animals are sick and they're sick. They're not going to give something to you. But, those are things you definitely have to be careful of. I think the only thing I've ever consciously come across is scrapies, sore mouth, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, outside of that, so I mean, look, I know we can go on and on and on, and I know that you also have very, very long days, and I really appreciate. And you were kind enough. I mean, I told you this was probably going to be one where I knew, who would think, although I would know that, fibers, artists, and knitters, crocheters, but actually they love more often than not when I have like non-fiber related guests. I mean, you are in a way as an ancillary, right? We met through llamas and
Right.
we haven't even touched, any llama alpaca stories, you have or things like that. But so in a way, indirectly, involved with the fiber industry. And even though you had hair sheep, I'm sure you see lots of woolies, along the way as well. But you don't, I'm curious. So do you have any fiber hobbies? Do you knit or crochet or anything like that?
I'm pretty terrible at all of them, but I love to go to fiber festivals. And Lucy and I love to felt. We're pretty terrible, but we do love it. And I have just an amazing respect for all of you who are fiber artists. I mean, I really do. I'm fascinated by your work, and all I can do is keep them healthy so you can get the fleece off. But then you just never cease to amaze me.
And do you guys do wet felting or needle felting?
Needle, yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a big part of it. It's actually perfect that you said that because we do try. I mean, I feel like so for me, I was an animal science person first, and then came to the fiber arts. Versus a lot of people here that are just involved in the fiber arts, and then really do my part to try to educate people to understand that especially like a yarn like this that's three animals from my farm, having them understand really the logistics of what goes into that, short of just like, poof, here's this yarn that lands in your lap and on your needles it goes. So, just the same as, this book isn't going to pay your bills, this yarn isn't going to pay me bills. And I tell people, as high end as our yarn is, I'm always like, look, I'm not driving a Lamborghini. You're probably going to see me in the same jeans and the same shoes. And, but everybody knows, it still all goes back to the process. And so I think it's equally cool to have somebody like yourself on here to, talk about that end of things. And even though we didn't specifically focus on fiber animals, it's still all the same, but it's so easy for everybody to forget that it all comes from somewhere. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Even the fibers that come from China, like sometimes I just want to be like, oh, poof, they just come from overseas. And I still have to remember that those fibers still come from somebody's animal, somebody's shepherding them. Like, somebody is still doing the work if it's a real fiber. So it is easy to forget that and to lose sight of that. So this is kind of just a really cool way to, pull this all in together. So before and we've lost a couple, but not too many, which is again pretty amazing. And I love that part of it. I would love for you to, before we kind of wrap up and have our last parting words. So essentially, it looks like there's 38, so that means there's 35 people that are still on here with us, and I need you to pick a number from 1 to 35. And then I kind of scroll through my participant list, and then that person's going to get a $25 store credit with us. So
I will pick my old basketball number 32.
you played basketball?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's probably the one sport I was like, I always said like lacrosse and basketball were like, I could never, if you even were gonna, kill me if I could make a hoop or no, 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 never, never. So let's see, then this makes it easy for me then 35, 34, 33, 32. So that's Stephanie Q, because I got two Stephanies. So sorry, Stephanie, Cook and Knits. So it's Stephanie Q. So congratulations.
I see O. Is it Stephanie O?
O or Q? I can't.
Can you put in the chat, Stephanie?
I mean, I know which Stephanie it is, So I know which Stephanie it is, but yes. So thank you. And of course, that's again me. I have to put my face right up to the screen in order to see all those little things. So cool. So thank you. So I mean, again, everybody, remember, please. I think is Amazon really the only place? Is that the best place for them to grab the
No,
books?
anywhere you buy books online, you can get the book. So, and it's on Audible as well. So I don't read it. A lady from the Catskills in New York reads it, but her mama's from Kentucky. Don't worry, she sounds like me. So, but yeah, so those, anywhere you can get it on Goodreads, you can get it on Barnes and Noble. So if you don't like to support Amazon, there's lots of places you can get it.
Very cool. Well, guys, I will hope that you'll go out and grab a copy and obviously whatever little bit that supports Melinda in all of her work. And I am sure it's absolutely going to be a great read. And then again, thank you to you for all the donations. So, remember, guys, I'm just going to update you because now the basket is increasingly getting larger. But so from Kimberly and I, there's the Cotswold Crafting with Cotswold class. So that's your $30 value. Alpacalets. We've got one of the bracelets in here. And then I just got the stuff that Frankie sent. So there's 3 skeins of yarn that, as she mentioned, are a variety of sheep, not necessarily what you'd think of as wool sheep, but there's a Jacob Cheviot, and I forget what the other one was. So there's 3 skeins of yarn. There's a really nice canvas tote with the Liberty Farms logo on it, and then a jar of their salsa from their CSA farm, and also a jar of marinara sauce. So that's all in there, making it heavy. And then now all of these things that Melinda gave us, so that's going all into that. So remember, we'll be drawing for that keepsake basket on the last day, our wrap-up party, and that will be one of those things too where you don't have to be there to win it. But for you shopping throughout this week, remember, for every $10 that you spend, you get 1 ticket that goes in it. And don't forget, if you guys have been enjoying all of these evenings, you can refer a friend. So if somebody comes tonight that has never been before, they drop their name in the chat and say like, hey, are you saying 2 people? Erin, is that like a 2-up? Cool. So then yourself as a new person gets a ticket in the basket, and the person who referred you. And guys, this doesn't cost anything. I just want to build this community. I just want more people to be joining us, to hear about this, whether they know anything about it or not. I know all of us are just such interested, educated people and love learning. And as I was saying, Melinda, they love these kinds of things almost more than when I have fiber people on. Like, they love the stuff they don't know, and they love the animal stuff. So last night I had somebody on who's a livestock manager for a CSA farm, a really big CSA farm in upstate New York. And we were geeking out on all sorts of like conversations and livestocky things and pigs and breeding. And, but she was just a really vibrant young woman who's mostly self-taught and has just gotten herself in this industry. And it was great conversations. And then even before that, I mean, just all sorts of fun things. We've been talking genetics and like fiber quality, and with our alpaca people, that was really interesting. They're fiber sorters, and they really focus on those kinds of things. So that's the stuff I like too, just to be able to geek out on that. I have a fellow shearer who's going to be on later in TDOC, so I know him and I are just going to geek out about shearing and sharing stories and all that kind of stuff. Because really, quite often, all of us that do this, like, honestly, I'm so jealous. I don't know where I would find the time, but I love, stories, and I think about all the things in my head. Just like you said, it's really more about the animals and the people that you meet along the way, and some of them are sad and some of them are heartwarming, some of them are funny. So I'll have to pick your brain at some point in time and see if I ever find time in my pocket to do something fun like that too. So
yeah, if you guys are reading any of the stuff and you have any questions, you can email me at drivinghomenaked@gmail.com.
that's amazing.
Yep.
And you actually find time to be able to do that too?
I don't check that every day, but I will get back to you. I promise.
That is awesome. So, Erin, yeah, please drop that in the chat. That's great. And yeah, because you know what? It really must be nice when you get people that read it and not only just appreciate the story, but, like the questions that people are asking tonight. I mean, I hope that you find that, equally, interesting, because people really are curious and they really love worlds they know nothing about. So I'm happy to have given you this platform to be able to educate a little bit about what you do. Anything you want to leave us with before we go?
I'm just so stoked about that lady's comment about this is why my husband doesn't eat at potlucks. I mean, that's epic. So
We're a fan.
Yeah, no, I think just
You
keep
want
doing.
to talk about a storyteller? If that's who said it, Anne needs to write her own book. When the stories that she tells me just through text of her family, her ministries, the scandals in the church, it's amazing. I love Ruth Ann's stories.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, you guys just keep doing your thing, being kind and getting your products out there and your beautiful fiber art. And yeah, if I can help you with anything, let me know.
Well, I will definitely also be keeping in touch, giving you a shout when I'm heading down that way. And if it actually comes to be that I am shearing back at Westerham again this year, since I got the call or the text back in September. So we'll see. But of course, I'm always happy to be back there and help in any way that I can too. So hopefully we can connect up.
Cool.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
Oh
Save
my
the
God.
chat.
Thank you for. Oh, are we good? I know, save the chat. Now I know where it is after Zoom changed everything on me last night. So I'm going to make sure we save that chat this time. So we're good to go. Thank you to everybody who helped me with that last night. Nobody said I was technologically advanced, but this is what I like to do. So guys, thank you again, everybody. Don't forget, guys, tomorrow night, John H.H., who's been with us and hanging with us, he's going to be with us tomorrow night. We're going to be geeking out on all things spinning, of which as a spinner myself, before I was even a knitter, that's about the extent of my knowledge though. And he's somebody that took a deep dive, and I mean a deep, deep dive into spinning as his hobby. So I'll look forward to chatting with him tomorrow night. So I hope you guys will join us. Don't forget, for New Year's Eve, we're back here again with Linda Courtwright of Wild Fibers, talking about all things Greenland and any of her more recent travels. And I know some of you have seen that you can already jump on and purchase a ticket to the one lecture series that we're going to be doing with her this year. So she's another great storyteller. So I'm just so blessed to have all these amazing storytellers around me. Melinda, I will definitely pass on to you any feedback. I've got lots of people that usually text me after this and say how wonderful it is and stuff like that. I'll make sure I get your way so you know that your time was well spent here with us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys, everybody have a great night. We will see you all again tomorrow. Send me that feedback. Try those recipes. Talk to you guys soon. Love you all. Mwah.